All right, so we're jumping into our third round of draft here with Matt D'Antuono and Jeff Williamson, who is actually joining us for this, and he's going to give a bit of commentary from his match. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about the deck you drafted.
Yeah, so this went surprisingly well for me. I I don't remember the order in which I got things, but hopped on the driving blade plan pretty early and ended up getting 7 driving blades and 2 warriors valor, which work as more or less the same. And so at that point, started to say, let me get some blues so that I can guaranteed combine those two to at the very least get a buffed go again Dawnblade.
Yeah, and definitely the driving blade Warriors Valor plan with a buff Dawnblade it's a fantastic way to build a Dorinthea deck. Really leaning on the attack reactions and hoping your opponent triggers his reprise. So already seeing you fire off a Warriors Valor and going to swing in with Dawnblade on turn 1.
And just note here, turn 1 pitching a Steelblade Shunt. I don't know if he remembers that later.
Steelblade Shunt is definitely one of those cards that it is a fantastic card to have early game. You're going to want to see that kick around through your deck, and hopefully by the time you draw it again, your opponent is in Shunt range, or definitely within a range that he's close enough to that 1 damage from the Shunt really matters. And especially against the Bravo player where he's looking to swing Anathos a lot, Steelblade Shunt is more often not going to be turned on.
So he's blocking 9 here, I believe. And was it 9?
That appears to be 9 from that.
Yeah. Oh, so it was the red. So, and what's that I'm pitching there?
Looks like another shunt. So definitely two shunts are going to be at the bottom of the deck. So that's going to be something to definitely take note of. And the red overpower definitely pushing that extra damage through. Very strong opening play, even considering you were playing turn 1 there.
Yeah, the last 2 rounds I won the die roll and went second, and then just was able to get on the aggro no block plan, just swing for the fences. And so I lost the die roll this turn, and he wisely went second, which made things a lot harder here. I would have loved to go second in this match, but still wanted to. I thought about, red overpower is really strong, but I wanted to force some damage through turn 1 here.
Yeah, and Matt going with the setup plan, getting the Stronghold Confidence in play, and swing with the Anathos. So this is a pretty popular Bravo turn. Getting his defenses set up for the next turn, try to bleed 1 or 2 cards out of you for one of his cards, and he's going to swing Anathos for a hefty 6 damage. So definitely a strong play, very, very classic Bravo start.
Yeah, also, when I played the Overpower, Matt said something about, it wasn't thinking about Overpower, and I had to suppress a little chuckle here because I have 4 Overpowers in the deck, and I'm almost tempted to say something like, keep not thinking about it.
And, overpowered, and there's a few other warrior cards that don't require that reprise to buff. So a lot of times people, when playing against warrior, will opt not to block. And, overpower can sometimes push damage that you wouldn't expect. And you also see a biting blade in your discard pile, which similar is operating a similar function to that overpower.
Yeah, and in the previous round of drafts, Matt had been on Dorinthea, and I was on Rhinar, and I took a line where I was going to go to 1, not blocking, or blocking 2 with equipment, but not triggering reprise. And if he couldn't trigger reprise, I had a huge swing back that was guaranteed to kill him, and he killed me with an overpower.
Yeah.
And so I remembered that when this game came around, and especially during the draft.
Yeah. So here you played a red Dawnblade, and you're firing off a red Driving Blade and a Dawnblade for 6, and that Stonewall Confidence is definitely pulling strong. It's
oh yeah.
It allows that card to block for 2 extra and Helm. So that's a full block on the Dawnblade. The red Driving Blade is definitely a premium card in Dorinthea. And to be able to have basically a card and a piece of equipment shut it down is a great position for Matt to be in.
Yeah, I think this was one of my kind of weakest feeling turns, but I was just kind of setting up at this point.
So Matt coming with a 3-card hand. Again, as we saw with Matt's draft, he definitely has a very, very strong end game, but he has the ability to punch through a lot of damage with some strong reds he took earlier in the draft. So between having a 3-card hand and a card in arsenal, Bravo is definitely in a strong spot. But he looks like he elects to swing the Anathos. He's going to punch in for 6 damage with that pitch.
And it was sometime around here that I started thinking, yeah, this is definitely going to be a long match. I wasn't expecting to get destroyed by an aggro Bravo, and trying to think, how am I going to stay alive long enough to force through damage, and realized I was not going to be able to follow the same don't block and full swing plan that I did in the previous games.
Yeah, and that at the end of turn sigil, which is a great play with his deck. As we saw with his draft deck, he's effectively playing if all of his cards fire off, he's effectively playing at 27 life in Blitz, which is incredibly strong, especially for a hero that can turtle up like Bravo can. But here Matt is faced with another buff Dawnblade attack coming in, so he's in a position he's looking like he's gonna let the throw a card in front of it. That will trigger any reprise that you have in hand. But he might feel confident with only 1 card in hand and 1 in arsenal that there might not be anything that can get him too badly, especially being at 21 life. He does have some wiggle room.
Yeah, I think my really strong plays here are if I can get him to have the choice of taking a lot of damage, not trigger reprise, or triggering it and taking a lot of damage, then I don't care what he chooses to do.
Yeah, and as you can see with that first play, Matt elected to take the first hit from the Dawnblade, but then when he swung back with the second swing on the attack, he fired that staunch response from hand. Definitely, it looks like Matt took a lot of damage there, but he did gain a good amount of tempo from that play, and also being able to maintain a card and swing back with Anathos for 4.
Well, and he's also calculating that on the second Dawnblade swing, it's going to be easier to avoid, to play around attack reactions, because I'll have just more cards that I've shown him at that point. So he's trying to keep the counter off the Dawnblade, I think.
Mm-hmm. That Dawnblade counter can be pretty frustrating, especially for a Bravo player, that all their cards, while they block for 3, that Dawnblade making that break point of 4 is definitely tough. And you're continuing the driving blade train here with another driving blade red. So this Dawnblade is going to be coming in for 6 again. And this definitely shows the power of drafting the go wide Dorinthea focused deck, where you're just wanting to swing a Dawnblade and have a reprise at hand. So here you have no cards in arsenal, 1 card in hand. So Matt knows he doesn't really have anything to worry about, but an attack for 6 is definitely nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, I'm thinking through here what he's thinking through, and knowing, well, the worst case is an Iron Song response pushing a little bit of damage, but he knows that I'm not threatening a Dawnblade counter, really, unless he just chooses not to block at all.
So the way Matt's deck is set up is he is happy to play the late game. I would definitely imagine there's a highly likelihood that Matt would either, if he has a defense reaction, he would fire it off just to prevent a little bit of that damage. And again, he has so much natural life gain in the deck. He can afford to take 1 or 2 damage spillover, but it definitely could come back to bite him if he's not in a position to be able to defend. But as we saw with Matt's deck, he does have a lot of higher cost red attacks with Guardian, so there is an incentive for him to maybe at some points of the game take a good clip of damage to be able to fire off either one of those disables he has or the crippling crush, which would be a fantastic tempo swing for him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is a yellow Iron Song response that I put in Arsenal. It wasn't on camera, but I think we'll see eventually. And I'm figuring, trying to push some damage over the top there. I don't particularly care. I'll save it for a time where it might give me some tempo, maybe threaten a Dawnblade counter, allow me to swing a second time, something like that.
Here Matt is coming with, looks like Anathos for 4 with the Sagas with 2. So I think that this is going to be Anathos for 4. And again, with playing the warrior style deck where you're looking to chip in with Dawnblade, there is a lot of setup that goes into those turns. You want to make sure that you have either that 0 cost attack reaction arsenal, or you want to be able to have the pitch in hand to be able to fire off and not get caught with an extra resource where you can try to push it out.
So we had a little discontinuity there. Just had to fix the camera there.
But this is Nature's Path Boomerang, which is buffing the Dawnblade by 3. So this is another Dawnblade attack coming in for 6.
Yeah, it doesn't naturally give go again, but this is also weird because the extra benefit that it gives is the arsenal effect of being able to put something in arsenal, and my arsenal's currently filled right now. Should possibly be suspicious, or maybe it's just awkward.
Yeah, I mean, in Matt's position, I would definitely be a bit suspicious about that line, considering how you played the game so far. I would definitely be expecting something to be coming out of that arsenal, and it's an overpower, so that is a big overpower considering that unmovable was from hand. So the overpower is going to push over a bunch of damage, and you still have the refraction bolters that you could clip those too. Unless you're out of resources.
I don't have any resources.
Okay, you're out of resources.
At this point. I pitched it to set it up exactly for that.
Looks like you might have missed that Nature's Path trigger.
Huh. I thought I remember. Maybe it happens with another one later. I remember triggering it and revealing an attack reaction, and so I couldn't do it.
Does not go there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, slight misplay, but it's back over to Matt, who has the 2-card hand. If we expect anything, we can definitely expect to see another Anathos swing. Just to kind of keep trying to get cards out of Jeff's hand to reduce the life he's on. But Matt at 14 and Geoff at 16, you're in a pretty strong position still at this point in the game.
Yeah, he's been very slowly leaking damage. You know, remember he's already sigiled once, and I'm still ahead. But as we can see, it's a very slow slog here. So around now, I'm starting to worry about fatigue. I mean, I was worried about it before we even started playing, but I'm trying to figure out how am I going to win the fatigue matchup here.
This looks like an Anathos coming in for a 6, and he does have 2 resources floating in a card in Arsenal. It's been there for a little bit. Matt really hasn't had a strong opportunity to punch any kind of damage through, so if I were in your position, I would definitely be considering that could be a pummel or some other attack reaction that could get me pretty hard.
Yeah, I was definitely worried about pummel here. I've been pummel Anathos many times.
But in a situation here, I think that, like you had mentioned, that the Bravo player is leaking damage, but that attack is going to force a couple out of your hand. So
I think I said something here about I hate to do it, and then I mistakenly thought that I was taking damage there. He immediately corrected me, but he said, "Oh yeah, hate the full block." So, well, no, because I was planning out my next turn, and I'm putting all my cards on the table here. So I'm threatening, but I'm not giving any of that hidden information to give him a difficult guess. That's what I was saying that I hated to do.
Yeah.
Was to set up like that.
No, one of the strongest feats of Dorinthea in Blitz, or really Dorinthea for any that matters, is that hidden information to make your opponents make inefficient blocks, take damage they shouldn't otherwise take to be able to push through. But when you're in a situation like this with Dorinthea, you're pushing for 6 with Dawnblade, which is definitely it's a big number, but it's basically six raw damage. There's no hidden information. There's nothing that can really be done about it. So you're just hoping that Matt doesn't have enough 3 blocks in hand to be able to mitigate it, but he does, as a Guardian player typically will.
But it does at least make it a lot less likely that I get hit by an enormous dominated attack coming back.
Right.
And I did lose 1 card to my graveyard there, but at the same time, I'm only losing 1 or at most 2 cards, but usually 1 because pitching to the weapon every time.
Okay, and we see that card that's been in Arsenal for a long time was a Tome of Findal, which Matt had a great chance to throw off there. So again, just with the amount of life gain in Matt's deck, just to be able to go from 14 to 17 and kind of grab back some of that damage he was leaking, and it definitely makes your play of pushing that damage with Dawnblade look a lot better, because at that point now you've not only denied Matt cards out of his hand, but you've also denied him life in the back end. So keeping up that pressure with Dawnblade and not trying to set up an arsenal definitely paid off for you there.
And obviously you're never playing around Tome of Findal in draft. You just don't expect to see it, but I was also kind of relieved of, I get to keep my whole hand here. I don't have to worry about blocking.
Yeah, and that is the one thing that the Tomifine doll without any kind of go again does do is that while it does gain life and allow Matt to kind of posture himself a bit better for the match, not having that go again to be able to really utilize those cards in the WTR draft environment, it is tough. And and like you had mentioned, now you're able to swing with Dawnblade with a 3 card hand. And Matt is kind of still, despite drawing some cards and getting some life, still very much on the back foot.
And so this is a Naked Dawnblade pitching a red raging onslaught. So I had a choice between this and pitching, I think it's a blue overpower, and so I thought this is one, keeping some more hidden information about how many resources I have available, and also I'm pretty sure that that's going to the bottom this turn anyways. But one way or another, I now know that I've got a strong red on the bottom coming up, and yeah, there's the blue overpower.
And that is, and that's a great example of pitch stacking too, and having hidden information. Just the fact that now you have, you have 2 resource floating in a card in hand with Dawnblade coming for 3. Now Matt has to think a lot more about that attack otherwise, and even if he is able to defend it, which he does with the yellow unmovable from Arsenal. Now you've pitch stacked yourself that you have the bottom of the deck, you have a red raging onslaught and a blue to pay for it. So having those cards coupled together is definitely good. Thinking about a long game plan as you're often more likely going to see your entire deck against Bravo.
Now this is the first time this has happened that I end my turn with an extra card in hand. And I think it very briefly confused me there because I'm used to just drawing up 4 cards.
So yeah, being able to fire back, Matt is in a 3-card hand, which Bravo is happy to play off of. Can easily pitch a swing Anathos for 6 and throw a card in Arsenal. Or if he has an attack that he wants to push through damage, he could do that. We have not seen any of those big red attacks from Matt as of yet. This would be a fantastic time to have it disable, or the crippling crush, especially considering he has 3 resources in hand, and that's how he's playing his hand. But he likes to go with the Dawnblade. And he does have the multiple, or the Anathos, and having the 3 cards the 2 cards to pitch with recall. So this is going to be an Anathos for 6, which is a big hit coming for you.
Yeah, and he's done a good job of keeping his life total high. And I'm going to take 3 here, so obviously setting something up. But at the same time, he's done very little to threaten my life total also.
Yeah, it's been a game of attrition very much so that, it's the small damage pushovers between, getting that overpower for 2 extra, or Matt being able to swing the Anathos for 6 and get a card out of your hand. So this is definitely it's a very classic Bravo game plan that he's just trying to extend the game as long as he can and be able to get a situation he can pitch cards to the bottom and hopefully set up one of those big combo turns at the end. So Matt's deck is kind of transitioning from just a kind of an all-out stall plan to try to get those cards set up that he can push through a big attack with a Dominate, Crippling Crush, or Disable.
Yeah, and also he's not leaking any cards at all on his attack there, just everything going back to the bottom there. And so, again, I'm getting very worried about how many cards everybody has in deck. I think it was either this turn or in another minute or 2, I might have really started looking at his stack to see how big it was.
So we are in a situation now where you're doing a similar play with the Nature's Path Pilgrimage with the card in Arsenal. So again, I'm sure the radar is up for Matt. There could be an attack reaction coming out of that Arsenal spot.
Yeah, this is a bit of a change of pace, though. So this is the first time this game that I'm buffing and not threatening go again.
Yeah, and then the Arsenal card does fire for the Iron Song, enough to push over damage, it appears, and have that Nature's Path trigger.
Okay, so this Nature's Path did trigger, and that's the one that. This is actually a double defense reaction, attack reaction turn. No. This is the card that you put it to the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah. So getting a 2 attack reaction play here, I think that was a huge swing, and from this moment on, I'm kind of leading the tempo a lot more than before.
Yeah, being able to push that extra damage, because the situation Matt was in before, he was relatively close on life total, but he's burned through a lot of his defense reactions, and he's popping the Goliath Gauntlet, so you're looking to see a big attack come your way. He's going with a blue Debilitate.
Yeah, and so I think I've already pushed over 17 or 18 damage this game. Uh, he just had the life gain.
Yeah, I mean the sigil was for 3, and the Tome of Fine Doll gained him 3 also, so that's 6 extra damage. So
So yeah, 18.
I mean, so Matt is effectively he would be at 2 life, but for all that life gain, and again, just showing the strength of having the showing how strong a sigil of solace can be in the match. So unfortunately, Matt was not able to buff that and give it dominate. So he would be able to get 3 cards out of your hand, but you still have a card in hand to be able to throw that Dawn Blade at him again for 3.
Yeah, and anytime I'm blocking for 3 in a fatigue matchup, I panic a little bit. But I think at this point I had looked over and he had about I think 8 cards left in his deck, and I realized that I'm actually leading the fatigue race here. If I can keep pushing damage and keep forcing him to block, I might actually uh, stop him from being able to do anything other than swing the hammer, and I can swing the Dawn Blade. So
Yeah, Matt looking at a last ditch effort in hand, which is effectively his game plan. He would love to be able to get that deck to be a fatigue mount and then be able to start swinging those last ditch efforts. And having 2 is incredibly strong because he can just continue to loop those cards and be able to have that and plus the Dawnblade. So he's definitely in a strong position for late game, but with Dawnblade pushing for 3 and you still having, you're not in concern of being fatigued, you're definitely in a position you can still push damage. And defending with the Slogism is still letting 1 damage leak over. So we're seeing that small incremental damage is definitely piling up for Matt here.
yeah, and last ditch effort, I don't think I'd seen them yet. Either did he pitch one?
I think he might have pitched one earlier in the game.
Okay.
So
I think I just missed that. This was the last match of the day. We'd been in the shop for 6-7 hours, something like that. Both of us were really exhausted at this point. In fact, I had just come off a disappointing loss the round before, where I missed a breaking scales on board and tried to go to 1 for a swing back kill, and just the game ended.
Yeah. Those are definitely things that happen after long game play days. But again, the breaking scales thing, that's something that hopefully will never happen again.
Yeah, and I think Matt also is. I think he's probably worried about being extra careful right now because he was also really tired too.
Yeah, and again, we see Matt coming for 6, and Matt, I'm sure he does remember he did see those steel blade shunts earlier in the game, so that is something that he I'm sure he realized, and then again, you're able to fire off a steel blade shunt here, so that's going to block the Innosos, and
it's pitching the other one to the bottom, but I know that 2 or 3 turns I'm going to see it again.
Yeah, so again, just if you're able to continue that the 1 to 2 damage incremental leak plan, that's going to be that's going to position you well to be able to use that steel blade shunt maximally. So, but again, just again a natural just Dawn Blade for 3. No go again on board, but 2 resources floating and a card in hand. So Matt does have to be cognizant that he is within Razor Reflex range. If you are running any of those in your deck, or any kind of just like a Biting Blade or a card like that has unconditional buff.
Yeah, I didn't actually get any razors this time, but yeah, I did have a lot of unconditional reactions. Biting Blades, the overpowers. I had played against him earlier, and when he on Dorinthea finished me off with the overpowers, with an overpower, when I just needed to fade a reprise. I didn't block, thinking that if he only had reprise reactions, then I would live on 1 life, but he had an overpower.
Yep.
And so doing my best to return the favor here.
Yeah, so we're seeing a Dawn Blade. Matt did defend the card from hand, so the reprise is turned on, and the Stroke of Foresight is another +3, so that's going to be coming in for 3. And it looks like Matt has a decision whether or not he wants to fire off a defense reaction from Arsenal. He's definitely thinking about it. And for Matt's situation, it is probably a pretty tough to want to fire off a premium defense reaction for 3 damage, especially this late in the game. But I don't think he can really avoid the leak 3 damage at this point, especially knowing there's a Steel Blade Shunt wrapping around. So he's going to be effectively at 2 life. With you at 11, he doesn't have a lot of wiggle room to be able to play.
Yeah, the reprise was not particularly significant here. It basically just lets me opt one card to the bottom to get that Steel Blade Shunt back, possibly a turn earlier.
Right, and that is definitely something that is worth considering for Matt. Just knowing that the deck size is so small at this point in the draft, being able to really help it kind of pseudo sculpt your hands in order to be able to have a have that Steel Blade Shunt either locked in arsenal or in hand, and really set up that end of game kill, or just have Matt, having to block inefficiently to avoid that. But he does take 2 damage from that.
And I think we see here just how much of a tempo swing that earlier double attack reaction was, because he never managed to get my life total low enough to really threaten me, and he's been leaking a little bit of damage here and there, such that now he can no longer afford to take a turn off from blocking to try to regain tempo.
And for Matt to have to block with that Blessing and Deliverance, I'm sure feels bad, because that effectively is some life gain also. But he is playing with 3 cards in hand and a card in arsenal. So if he's going to do something, I feel he's probably definitely in a position that he needs to try to make something happen here. So he's going to pitch a Slogism and a Wounding Blow, and that's going to be Anathos for 4. Unfortunately, neither of those cards have a 3 cost, and that's not gonna buff the Anathos. And you're doing a quick deck count just to see, and we're both looking pretty low on our deck stacks here.
Yeah, I think, was he at 4 there, maybe?
It was maybe a little bit more than 4, but it was a low amount. Yeah. So he's coming in Anathos for 4. He has a card in hand and a card in arsenal. He does not have any resources floating, I don't believe. So he's threatening 4 damage. I imagine at this point in the turn, you're probably just happy to take it or do a minimal block.
Yeah, we'll see in a minute, but I think I'm just blocked with 1 here, and I'm happy to leak 1 or maybe 2 every turn, because now if I can either buff Dawnblade and swing, he has to leak a card, and I am definitely thinking I want to empty his deck and get him that way at this point.
Okay, so that Anthos must have been for 6. So I see why you defended with. It looks like you defended with 2 block cards. So
right.
But still, that gives you enough ammunition to be able to pitch, swing Dawnblade, and have a card in hand. Again, with Matt, anytime you see a 1 card in hand with 2 resources floating or a resource floating, you have to be concerned there's going to be a pretty big attack reaction coming your way.
Yeah, that was one of my more complicated blocking decisions, where I decided to take the damage to set up a better hand here, and we're going to see in a minute what it was, but I think part of it was keeping that, I believe that's a blue driving blade, so I wanted to have the resources for this turn. And I don't remember what that card is, but I think it's probably well, we'll see.
There are 2 resources floating, and I believe you were running some Biting Blades in the deck, so that would give you that unconditional buff. So I'm not sure if Matt has any idea of the cards you are running in your list, but I mean, a Dawnblade for 3, he could be thinking that he's happy to take it, but he does have to be concerned about that shunt that is wrapping his way around the deck also. So he's definitely in a tough blocking situation. He's almost forced to have to block a card. I'm sure he's really hoping that defense card or that arsenal card is a defense reaction, so he can still fire it off, block the attack, and not internal reprise rate.
Yeah, so that's the other thing, is that every swing is presenting lethal here, and I don't know. I think this may have been an Iron Song response. I'm not sure, but yeah, if he takes the 3 and I do nothing, okay, no, so it was the blade. So I'm forcing he's got to come up with a defense reaction here or die.
Yeah, and honestly, for Matt, I'm sure he's actually probably happy with that exchange. He was able to get maximum value from that defense reaction, and only use 1 card in hand to do it, and get out a premium attack reaction from you. So that turn went pretty well for Matt, all things considered. He still effectively has a 3-guard hand, but you had 9 life. That's still a tough situation for the Bravo player to be in, especially this late in the game where you can continually push that incremental damage.
Yeah, that was a little rough, not getting 2 cards or a damage, but I was definitely glad to get rid of that card from Arsenal, and as long as I can get 1 card out of his deck every turn and not deck out myself, I'm still happy.
Yeah, and we see Matt with a pretty astute play. He's opting to activate Bravo's dominate trigger for the pitch, and then swing Anathos. So that allows him to pitch 2 3-cost cards to make that Anathos come in for 5. So Anathos is coming in for 5, and he has a card in hand. So you have to imagine he's just, again,
6, you mean?
Or 6, I'm sorry. So Again, just pushing that extra damage, getting a card out of your hand, and being able to throw a card in arsenal. But you're going to immediately come back with Dawnblade for 3. So he's in a situation kind of just like the last turn, that he has to be concerned about that unconditional reaction, and that would buff it without the reprise trigger.
Yeah, I definitely have some sort of reaction here, whether it's reprised or not. I don't remember, but yeah. So I think I've got 5 cards in deck there.
I mean, and at this point, Matt has seen every card in your deck in some fashion. He knows there's overpowers floating around. He knows there's a Steel Blade Shunt. Probably, if not in your hand, it'll be definitely in your next draw. So he's effectively at 3 life when you factor in that Steel Blade Shunt. So he has to really make a hard decision here how he wants to block. Is he willing to turn on that reprise and hope that you don't have that overpower in hand? So Matt definitely does have a tough decision to make. Thinking really hard about it. Again, just the knowing what is in your deck and having at this point, Matt in theory does have perfect information of what's going on. So hopefully I'm sure he's weighing out the lines and he's seeing what he has. But he does also have that Iron Rot plate that he has at his disposal. He could throw in front of that Dawnblade also.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about that as well, about the equipment on his side. But we'll see it in a minute here. This is the end of the game, the end of a very long day. I think all the other matches have actually ended for a while at this point. And I think he actually does a line where he forgets that I have a 1 block on board. Sounds a lot like the way like the inverse of how my game with the breaking scales ended earlier.
So he does elect to throw 3 in front, or 6 in front of the Dawnblade, and you do have that blue overpower from him. So what that does is that overpower essentially buffs Dawnblade to a 4. So that's going to leak 1 damage over for Matt. So, and again, at this point in the game where you're really, I'm sure, banking on having that Steel Blade Shunt, getting him 1 more damage off is definitely a strong position to be in.
Yeah, and also I was thinking, is it worth a card for 1 damage? But at this point, he can never afford to not block a Dawnblade.
Yeah, and for Matt's position, like blocking for 6 makes you have that reaction for 3. I'm sure he wasn't anticipating the overpower, but I mean, effectively that is a strong block from Matt. Just unfortunate for him that you had that card that could push over that 1 extra damage. But as we saw, Matt's deck is getting lower, and you can see that last ditch effort right on top. So he's looking to set that in game up, but you're able to fire off that Steel Blade Shunt and knock Matt down into 2. But you do take the 2 damage spillover from the Amethyst attack. So the life totals are 4-2, and it is pretty close. I would say that, as the warrior player, you have a bit of the tempo advantage right now. And again, in a situation where you're forcing over 6 damage, no real way on board for Go again or the Dawnblade to get an extra push damage. And if Matt does throw 6 in front of this, he'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking if I can get 2 more cards out of his deck, he's got almost nothing left to come back at me.
Yeah, so Matt is Matt electing to block 6. I mean, at this point in the game, I would actually, in Matt's position, I would consider, like, if he doesn't have a strong push for an attack, just trying to do whatever he can to rip through his deck as fast as possible. Yeah. But he does throw Bravo with a Crushed Confidence, so that is a dominated attack. So he's pushing a good amount of damage.
So he thought that this was lethal because he forgot that I had the 1 extra block there.
Yeah, and that, again, showing the strength of the equipment just to be able to have it. But yeah, for Matt, he's pushing, even assuming you have a 3 block in hand, that Crushed Confidence coming in for 7.
Yeah, there's that Raging that I pitched at the bottom before.
So if Matt remembers the pitch order from the deck, that Raging Onslaught was on the bottom, and it was right next to a red Overpower. So,
and he has no cards in deck at this point.
He does have new cards in deck, but he would have that last ditch effort in hand, which is a very, very strong finisher for him. Just the extra, the plus attack and the go again. I mean, he could definitely set Matt up. So he's in a position he really doesn't want to take this damage, but he's going to throw his Iron Rod plate in front of it. So he's going to be blocking 1. You still have two cards in hand and 2 resource points floating. So If Matt doesn't remember the pitch, he would have to assume that you're probably looking at a red overpower in your hand, and with two resources floating, you have more than enough to cast it. So we'll see how he lines his block up and see if he wants to take a gamble that isn't the card that's in your hand. Definitely an unfortunate play for Matt, but I don't imagine he really would have done much differently, even if he hadn't missed that Iron Rot plate on board. Just getting you down to one and being able to do a setup. I mean, maybe he could have held off one more turn and had an Amethyst swing, but still, he's in a position that he really needed to make something happen.
I know he's definitely thinking he's going to come back with the last ditch effort. But the way I'd line this up here, I don't know if there's any way he can get around it, because even if he knows exactly what's in my hand, he has to lose too many cards to be able to win the game.
Yeah, so Matt blocking with the Wounded Blow and the Slogism and the Iron Rot plate for a total of 5. That Overpower is coming in for +4 more. And that's the game. So that was a wild one. Definitely, you saw the strength of the Dorinthea just being able to constantly push 6 attacks through.